Welcome, and thanks for coming out today to show your support for Chris and his family and EPD and other fallen officers and their families and law enforcement in general. It's very gratifying. So special thanks to those who have traveled so far, and also a thanks to you who braved the local logistics and were able to attend today. A memorial like this doesn't come together easily in a week, or less than a week actually. And so there are many people who've made huge efforts, too many people really to name. But a special thanks to the University of Oregon, who has graciously donated this facility on a volunteer basis. The city didn't call them, they called the city and volunteered. And also a great amount of staff, as well as you've noticed, I'm sure. Also a special thanks to the State Fire Marshal's Incident Management Team, which came in and helped the city get this organized. This is something they do, and it's not something, of course, that we do on any kind of regular basis. So a lot of those people are volunteers, and we really appreciate them having come down, and some of them spent a week here on a volunteer basis to get this ready to go. We're here to honor a very special man. He is, I think you're going to find, a very special man. And I think it'll be fair to say that for those of you who didn't know Chris personally, I think when you leave here, you're going to have a real good sense of who he was, and almost a feeling that you did know him. At least that's our hope. Thank you.
My name is Brett Gilchrist. I'm a pastor at University Fellowship Church here in town. We're going to take a moment now and ask you to remember Chris, remember his life, his service, his duty to our community, and his memory. So we're going to pause for a moment of silence, and I will bring us back together in a word of prayer. So if you would just take a moment and still your hearts and calm your minds and capture some thoughts about Chris. Thank you. Lord, we come before you this morning, this afternoon, sad and quite frankly, real discouraged about the events of this week. This is not how you designed us as people to reflect your glory, and yet here we are. Chris was a very good man, and his absence leaves a gaping hole. I'd ask for Christy and the kids and for the extended family that you would give them strength right now, that you would help them to understand your love and care and concern for them at a time when it's really hard to grasp. Give them grace, give them courage to face tomorrow and hope for the future. Let them know that you will watch over them, that we will watch over them, and most of all, that their families and the EPD will care for them. I thank you for the law enforcement agencies that are represented here this afternoon. I thank you especially for the Eugene Police Department. I pray that you would bring them comfort. This has been a tough number of months for them. And I sense in their hearts a desire to see better days ahead. And so I pray you would bring them comfort and watch over them. And we would pray that you would protect them. For those now that are going to come speak and tell us more about Chris and share their memories of Chris, I thank you for their willingness and desire to represent the rest of us. There are many in this room that could share tremendous thoughts and stories and loving memories of Chris, but a few get to do that, and we ask that you would strengthen and encourage them and help them to begin the healing process. Help us now as we remember our fallen brother. Help this to be a day that would honor him. And I come to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
I work in the court where Chris appeared most often. It's the place where he filed his traffic citations. It's the place where he appeared for trial if necessary. And so we did see him on a regular basis. And my comments are really those of the entire court, including the staff and the supervisors and the other judges. And I think we had a universal feeling that Chris was a terrific guy. And the thing I think about Chris most often is that every time we saw him, he earned our respect. He was a warm-hearted human being, and he had beautiful manners, and he always showed genuine respect and courtesy to everybody, including, really people who may not have deserved it. But he never abandoned civility and never abandoned treating people with the kind of respect that we'd all like to have. As you can tell from the pictures, he had a fabulous, infectious, and sometimes mischievous smile and a quick, wonderful sense of humor. Chris once said, "Life's an adventure, and I'm glad to be in it." And he grabbed life, and he held on tight, and he loved the ride, and he was light on his feet, avoiding the many potholes that others of us fall into. He was a humble man, and he was truly embarrassed when staff mentioned to him the number of accolades and positive comments he got from those people that he ticketed. Obviously, the job of a traffic enforcement officer is not an easy one. You're not the bearer of glad tidings. You're giving people tickets. Maybe their offense requires that their car be towed. Maybe there's a warrant and they're taken into custody. But nobody likes to get stopped by a police officer. And nobody likes to admit, well, some do, that they really did make a mistake. So these are not friendly, fuzzy contacts that you have. It's a difficult, dangerous, and stressful job. But Chris did it with grace, and he did it with style. And the job didn't change Chris. He stayed the same. And the result was that time after time, we had people tell us they didn't like the ticket, but they liked the guy that gave it to them. One fellow even mentioned that after he got the ticket, he felt like he wanted to ask Chris to go fishing with him. And that's Chris. That's the way it was. And he always carried that respect and that civility into the courtroom. And the trials often ended, of course, with a guilty verdict, but with the defendant offering his hand to Chris as they left the courtroom. He truly understood the connection between his job and his community. And he often said, "It's an honor to do the job. It's the best job ever."
I'm Pete Kearns, the Eugene Police Chief. Thank you all for joining us today. The outpouring of support from the law enforcement community and from the Eugene community for our department and for the Kilcullen family has been tremendous, and I thank you for it. I'm so glad to see Pastor Gilchrist here today because, not just because he is an insightful and moving speaker, but also because of his powerful leadership that he's shown in his church. And that's leadership that has brought the church to serving others in a variety of ways. Last year, his University Fellowship Church put thousands of dollars in the hands of the Eugene Police Department to use to help those in desperate need when we encounter people on our city's streets. And it's fitting that he should be here to speak when we know that Chris was so charitable and so giving. I have to tell you that there are as many reasons, in fact, for why someone would go into law enforcement as there are police officers. Some, like Chris, joined to help. Some joined for the excitement. But ultimately, those who work as police learn the enormous potential they have to serve a community, to serve individuals, and to serve one another. And they learn that they can do this at the highest level of performance. I can tell you that we are so devoted to serving well that when our motives or the quality of our work is doubted by others, we at times hear only the criticisms. It's important then to remind ourselves that we work by certain virtues. Virtues that can be carved in stone on the front of City Hall, but are more powerfully lived out in the flesh and bone and in the hearts and souls of the women and men of our department. These virtues are indelible in our heritage, and they define the good character of Officer Chris Kilcullen. And they are these. The Eugene Police Records Specialist, dispatcher and call taker, community service officer, detective and patrol officer, the Eugene Police Motor Officer, is a person of strong moral and ethical character. They are individuals of relentless integrity. They are mature, intelligent, and well-spoken. They are compassionate, polite, and helpful. They are courageous. They are hardworking and devoted professionals. And when introduced into the chaos and hysteria of a crisis, they are the calm and stabilizing presence that ensures the best possible outcome. And no one embodied these virtues more so than Chris Kilcullen. Chris was a kind, warm, and wonderful man. And I can tell you that I'm not, and we're not, only saying these things because we're speaking at his memorial service. We've been saying these things about him for as long as he's worked here. During the candlelight vigil Saturday night, someone from our municipal court came up to me to say that at least once a week, someone who'd received a traffic citation from Chris would comment on how nice and professional he was. Many said they wanted to apologize for causing him to stop them. Just 2 nights ago, someone stopped by my house to tell me that they were stopped by Chris once last year. And while they were talking, they talked about family and children and life for nearly 45 minutes. I wanted to ask why he wasn't doing something else during that time. This person told me it was the most pleasant 45 minutes of their entire year. Chris may have been among the most confident, honest, selfless, and good-humored men I have known. He would touch the heart of everyone around him and make them feel like the most important and respected person alive. And as a father, he was adoring and present. Sydney and Katie, I think it's safe to say we deeply grieve the absence of your father. But it's comforting for all of us to know and see that he lives on in you. So where do we go from here? In the minutes following the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., Robert Kennedy made a passionate and impromptu speech to a large gathering in Indianapolis. He began by quoting Aeschylus. Even in our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our despair against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God. He continued, what we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but it is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another and a feeling of justice toward those who still suffer. Robert Kennedy inspired those present to turn a terrible tragedy into a greater good, and Indianapolis was one of the few major American cities to remain peaceful in the days following Dr. King's death. As our country did in that difficult time, we today ask ourselves what possible good can come from a senseless loss like this. It can, I believe, be, as the Irish say, a terrible, terrible beauty. The loss is horrific, but the potential to learn from Chris's life and to grow in love, wisdom, compassion, and justice is great. Thank you, Chris, for a life lived well. Thank you for touching each of us so positively. And thank you for the glorious memory of a truly great man.
Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Deborah Vogt, and I am a circuit court judge here in Lane County, but I'm not here really because of my job today. I'm here because Chris was my friend. And if I pause through this, it's because I'm doing math in my head because my daughter told me to be able to get through this. We are here to honor Chris, but we are here to honor him not for how he died. We are here to honor him for how Chris lived. As his family, his friends, and his community grieved this week, one thing became clear that you've already heard. Chris was everybody's favorite cop. Universally loved and respected by all those who knew him. And for those of you who did not know him, everything that you're hearing is true. If he gave you a ticket, and he would give you a ticket even if he knew you, if he gave you a ticket, you felt compelled to say thank you. That's not always true of all of our police. He treated every single person he encountered with patience and respect. Kind, smart, funny, caring, solid. I can think of so many words that describe Chris. But the one word that came to my mind all week when I thought about him was dedicated. Chris was a man dedicated to his family, dedicated to his profession, and dedicated to his community. And when Chris was dedicated to something, he did not jump in halfway. He jumped in all the way. He strived to be the best at all of it. The best dad, the best cop, the best friend, the best public servant. Many of us strive to be the best in all aspects of our life, but few of us actually achieve that goal. Chris was one of those few. In Chris, we've lost one of life's most precious gifts, and that is a genuinely good person. Now, I agree with Judge Allen. If Chris were here today, he would, and I can hear him in my head right now saying, "Stop it, Deb," because he was also humble, too humble. Frankly, we would be embarrassing him, I think, a little bit today. But it's all true. One thing that Chris was very proud of was being a police officer. The mission of law enforcement is to serve and protect, and Chris took that mission very, very seriously. At this event, I believe that he would want us all to reflect on exactly what that means and to pay tribute to his fellow officers who continue on that mission even in the wake of such tangible sorrow. I have worked with police officers for years. I have witnessed their frustrations. I have heard their war stories. I have experienced their sacrifices, and I have continually worried about their safety every day. Over the years, I've found that law enforcement is not about uniforms, it's not about lights and sirens and badges. It is about taking a stand against the worst aspects in our society in order to keep the peace. It is about routinely experiencing the tragedies of human cruelty in order to keep the community safe. It is about running toward danger when the rest of us are running away. It is about having the courage to say goodbye to your family each and every day, knowing the constant risk that you might not come home. And it's about the courage of those families who watch their loved ones put on that uniform each and every day to protect and serve the rest of us. For some Eugene residents and Lane County residents, the inherent risk in law enforcement may have seemed kind of a faraway problem until we lost Chris last week. After all, Lane County is a wonderful place to live. It is an enlightened place of outdoor recreation and arts and entertainment and tolerance. However, our law enforcement officers experience the diversity of our community quite differently. They see gang violence, methamphetamine abuse, anarchist activities, domestic violence. They see armed robberies, residential burglaries, and they see hundreds of horrific cases of abuse and neglect. Cops right here and nationwide routinely are bitten, scratched, spit upon, cussed at, lied to, criticized, demeaned, and yes, they are shot at. All in the course of doing their job. And still they do it. Despite all of that, officers are willing to put that uniform on every day and hit the streets to protect and to serve. You're all heroes. Please accept my heartfelt gratitude for always coming when the rest of us always are calling for help. Today we are here to honor Chris, our fallen hero. He served this community proudly and bravely. He carried out his duty and he made our lives better, safer, and richer. His mission to protect and to serve has led Chris, his family, his friends, his department, his community to this ultimate sacrifice. There are no words that will ease our pain today. There is no ceremony that will, there is no ceremony that will overcome our grief. We have lost someone very special. Each of us today must pledge that we will remember Chris's sacrifice and that we will live our own lives in ways that will honor that sacrifice. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot to a lot of people out there, and you're saying and honoring to a great man. My name is Aaron Lewis, and I worked with Chris on countless charities and projects, and although I wasn't a childhood friend, he opened his heart, and you felt like you knew him for years. Chris Kilcullen was a gift, and the heartbreak of it all was that he was a gift on loan and was needed back well before we were willing to part with him. People use cliches like one of a kind, and he made the world a better place in everyday conversation, but I will never use those words unless I'm talking about Chris Kilcullen. He was no cliche. He was the real deal. He made the world a better place, one person at a time. Somebody asked me if I was going to talk about special times with him, and I got to thinking of our times together, and they were all special. He made you feel better. I mean, just being in his presence. I would think of excuses to have him come into the station just to be in his presence. He made your day, even if you got a speeding ticket out of it. I would tell stories, and the same story over and over, that we were having coffee and somebody came up and said, you gave me a ticket. And like Chris, He was about to apologize. He said, no, I was in the wrong. I deserved it. I just wanted to say that you were so polite and so respectful, and I just wanted to tell you have a nice day. And you think, did he just set that up? I mean, it was just too surreal. And then you find out that that's the life of Chris Kilcullen. Happens every day. If you didn't have the chance to meet Chris, he was a gentle man. He had the love of adventure, avid diver, camping. He also loved coffee, and 95% of our chats and our conversations involved coffee. He was a lover of cheesy 80s music and heavy metal. He loved radio. He was a master communicator. Chris had a cool calm about him. And my wife uses in her business what we call the Kilcullen approach, and that's to be calm and just to relax. And if she's talking to somebody who's a little overzealous and overheated, it calms him down. He was a master communicator, made him a great hostage negotiator. He was a great friend, but really to see the core Chris, you had to see him with his family. He loved his family. They were number one, and you saw it all the time. Christy's mother had heard Chris on the police scanner, if you can believe it, and wanted them to meet. She wanted her to meet 2 Adam 32. She had fell in love with his sexy voice, his great sense of humor, and said that even under stressful and traumatic situations, he was always please and thank you, respectful. She was over the moon when she realized that 2 Adam 32 knew Christy. Chris was ruled by helping others, and he made himself accessible. I never heard him say no. He loved being a cop. He was perfect for the job. And like I think you heard earlier, he wore a badge, but the badge didn't define him. It was a part of the whole. That being said, Chris was the best advocate out there for the Eugene Police Department. How many folks completely changed their feelings about police and law enforcement after meeting Chris Kilcullen? Officer McBride said over the weekend that on the department's list of nice, he was number one, and I'll go you one better. On the everybody list, he was number one. He was my role model as a man, as a dad. He is the man. And in a time like now, where it's so completely raw and harsh, we need Chris Kilcullen, and he's not here. But if I learned anything about him from my time talking to him and seeing how he lived his life, we can't compensate for the loss, but we need more people to try to fill the giant void that he left. We need to come out of our comfort zones, out of our routines, and heed the lessons that Chris was teaching, whether he realized it or not, and whether we were paying attention or not. Chris 101, be helpful, be humane, have a heart. Be a dad. Be the best, and you don't have to brag about it. Keep the speed down. You'll get there. Walk in the stiff boots around the track and smile through the blisters like he did for Relay for Life. It's all worth it. Bring love into this world, and you honor Chris Kilcullen. It is a complete honor to be with you on this day that we'll never forget. When you see a Eugene police officer, when you see a law enforcement officer in general, shake their hand and tell them that you're sorry for their loss. They had their best taken away, and we all did. We all did, but we can't give up the fight. Chris would not want that to happen. Rest well, brother. God bless the Kilcullen family. God bless everybody, and thank you. It's been an honor to be here. Thank you.